The time has finally come to discuss the box set of the year. Well, it was actually supposed to come out last year, but it was delayed until January of 2024. Inside the Mind of Coffin Joe. I did a video on Coffin Joe in general, but this is an Arrow limited edition box set, 10 or 11 movies in one of those hard boxes that the kids love these days, that has the top that comes off. Though in the case of the Coffin Joe box set, the whole thing is the whole shtick is inside the mind of Coffin Joe. So it's like Coffin Joe's top hat comes off, and it's like you get into his mind. The box set blew me away. It's hard to do a review of this because we've been waiting for this so long, and I know it's, to some people, it's just going to be another limited edition box set that you put on a shelf and that's color coordinated with the other box sets, and that's fine. You know, that scratches an itch. That's fine. But the works of José are incredible. I think José is the only filmmaker that I've seen the only filmmaker who at the same time has been compared to both Herschel Gordon Lewis and Louis Buñuel. He straddles the line between high art and low art. He was part of high-end Brazilian art films and art house film culture, but then also he was part of the trash film culture in Brazil. He was like an Elvira horror host, spook show, but also he was like over commercialized in the 70s and the 60s, and like this David Cassidy pop icon with his face on posters and statues and figures and magazines and comic books. Big tradition of Coffin Joe comic books. So it's hard to put him in a box. What comes to mind when you're thinking about the world of Coffin Joe is strange, strano. So many of his films, the documentary about him the word strange is in it a lot. The Strange World of José Mojica Marins, which is a documentary circa 2000. That was a big Sundance documentary about the life and work of Coffin Joe, and then there's the Strange World of Coffin Joe, and so it's difficult to get. And then there was this, what was it called, the Strange Universe or Mysterious Universe of Coffin Joe. That's an Ivan Cardoso documentary on Coffin Joe from the late 60s, early 70s. But that's not available on this box set. There's a lot of stuff that's not on the box set, but you're getting the balance of José's films, which are the Coffin Joe, what you call them, trilogy of movies. At Midnight I'll Take Your Soul, This Night I'll Possess Your Corpse, and Embodiment of Evil. But you could also include maybe Awakening of the Beast as well. It was included in the Fantoma Films DVD box set as, At Midnight I'll Take Your Soul, Possess Your Corpse, and Awakening of the Beast. So they kind of made a trilogy out of that. Zédu Cajon, Coffin Joe, a gravedigger character, starts off as a gravedigger in At Midnight I'll Take Your Soul. Blasphemous, doesn't believe in anything other than himself, is self-obsessed toward one goal, and basically offs or wounds or damages anybody that gets in his way. The film is iconic, apparently being made at the same time in the 60s as Blood Feast was in the United States. It has a lot of gore, a lot of viciousness. And the thing about Coffin Joe's films is that even though he's been compared to Herschel Gordon Lewis, Herschel Gordon Lewis is kind of like, like A Taste of Blood is like one of the, in my opinion, is one of the most boring films it has such an interesting, cool trailer. The posters, the poster art, and everything. But it's like the movie is like watching paint dry. And I mean, at the end of Blood Feast, you're just watching this poorly shot of this guy running around, Fuad Ramses, and um, it's a totally different experience with Jose's films. Jose is, even though a primitive filmmaker, he is a committed filmmaker. And the collaboration between his cameraman, Giorgio Attili, produced these films, which are, if anything, they're not boring. They are crazy, they're insane, but these are not boring movies at all. They have legs, they move, they have an energy, they're part spook show. They're full of ghosts and goblins, and then there's the element of like almost like Ruffy, like those violent type movies, black and white, vicious, violent films that were coming out of New York in the '60s. So there's that element in his films, but then there's also the idea of the filmmaker playing the lead actor. There's an element of Alejandro Jodorowsky to them that I find, and also he has the weird Nietzschean philosophy and some of the ideas of the films are quite they're quite thought provoking. So this is not like it's not Herschel Gordon Lewis, but in a way, the films of Herschel Gordon Lewis and Dave Friedman and Jose, they are kind of emblematic of the Something Weird video. And Something Weird video was really coming to birth in the United States at the same time that people were starting to catch on to Jose, because what happened with Jose is he made all these films in the '60s and the '70s, and by the early '80s he'd just been kind of forgotten. He was making adult movies. He was having to do very bad movies that he didn't want to make. And he made a few. I mean, Coffin Joe kept coming up. Coffin Joe did come up in some '80s films as well. But then in the late '80s and early '90s was this guy, Andrei Brzezinski, who kind of rediscovered Coffin Joe and started writing about him, and he got Coffin Joe in touch with this guy, Mike Vraney, who was coming together with this video label called Something Weird Video. Those guys, Mike Vraney, got in touch with Coffin Joe, I believe through Brzezinski, and I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. And it was Mike Vraney who actually named Zé Cajon, Joseph of the Coffin, as Coffin Joe. I think this apparently Joe is not used in Brazil. Apparently, I don't know, but Joseph, that's Jose's name, stands for Joseph, and Zé is Jose, Joseph of the Coffin, because he was a gravedigger in the first movie. So those VHS tapes, that Something Weird video released on VHS, as far as I'm aware, I think those were some of the first videotapes, some of the first video releases of Coffin Joe's films. Sorry, Jose's film. The thing is, you want to call Jose Coffin Joe, but the Coffin Joe films is what I'm talking about. Jose's films. I don't think those films were ever released in the '70s, late '70s or '80s on home video. They were effectively lost movies until Brzezinski and Mike Vraney and Something Weird Video started bringing these back out on I think Awakening of the Beast might have had a VHS release, but I don't know about the others. And not all of the VHS releases of the Jose films, not all of those films are on this box set. It's overwhelming to talk about Jose's output because there's just so many films. I guess his first big film was At Midnight I'll Take Your Soul, and it's always been a rough looking movie, this new remaster is it it it's it's a revitalization of the film. It looks as good as Blood Feast and the Defilers and all of those Dave Friedman Something Weird video releases, which always looked incredible because they were stored in labs in North America. They just you just pull out the negative of Blood Feast and do a new transfer on the latest format on VHS or Laserdisc or DVD or Blu-ray or 4K or whatever. Those that was just a given. With the Coffin Joe films, it was never a given that these things had good transfers. The home video history of Coffin Joe of the Coffin Joe films of Jose's films in general was they had those initial VHS releases in the 1990s, which looked really good. The thing about Mike Vraney and Something Weird Video is he really, the tapes kind of looked bootleggy. They were in these clamshells with the garish art that was like Xerox and stuff. But in spite of that, Mike Vraney always used really top quality telecine technology, top quality tapes, top quality duplications, always duplicated in SP, which was not a given in the 1990s. That a lot of these people were trying to cheap out on tape duplication, and that was not what Something we was doing. So those tapes, for what they are, they still look decent for 1990s technology. Coffin Joe at the end of the 90s, kind of, as I said, there was this documentary about the life of Jose, Strange World of José Mojica Marins, which is on this box set. Around 2001, a company called Fantoma released a trilogy. They released Midnight I'll Take Your Soul, This Night I'll Possess Your Corpse, and Awakening of the Beast, in a nice edition that had a reproduction of a Coffin Joe comic book. In each one, there was it was a beautiful little set of releases that were, I believe, in so those initial three releases were in 2001, but then they were brought back out in 2003, the same releases but in a box set which was in the shape of a coffin. And throughout the early 2000s, there was a re-release around 2005, 2006 in the Anchor Bay, UK, released a nice Coffin Joe box set that had really nice artwork, and maybe that was closer to when Embodiment of Evil came out. But it was the Anchor Bay box set. It had really nice artwork, and and transfers were not that great on that box set. There were NTSC to PAL transfers. They had problems. The subtitles are these big, blocky yellow subtitles. It's not my favorite release, but it had more. It was more movies. It was more Jose movies because we'd gotten that taste with the 3 movies, and then the Something Weird Video VHSs, they were still kind of available, but they weren't. The VHS was disappearing. So the Anchor Bay box set for its time had more stuff. It had more extras. It had the Marins documentary on it as well. And then there were some Brazilian releases of Coffin Joe's films which had commentary tracks by Jose on the films, but they were not English friendly. They had no subtitles. So this release from Arrow, and it's been something that we've been waiting for years. We've been waiting for it for years. Again, the last big release we had in the United States of Coffin Joe of Jose it was around 2017 when Synapse released the trilogy, the Midnight, Possess, and also Embodiment of Evil, along with Awakening of the Beast. They released these on DVD because apparently they couldn't get the film elements. They couldn't get proper film elements. They couldn't get them out of Brazil. They released Synapse did release Embodiment of Evil on a Blu-ray, but apparently they were unable to secure HD masters of the other films, which was a shame. And for a while, devoted fans of Coffin Joe, of Jose, were worried that we would never see these films in HD. Some of Jose's films started showing up on Brazilian television in HD transfers. So at least four of them have shown up on around on Brazilian television. They've been posted to YouTube now, and a few of them are still up there. The transfers on this Arrow Blu-ray are not the same as the Brazilian television broadcasts we've seen. Specifically, Midnight I'll Possess Your Corpse, the transfer had a lot of white specks. It was a real degraded. It was a strong. It was obviously from a film transfer. Did not look like an upscale. It had a lot of detail, but it was nothing like the restored picture of At Midnight I'll Possess Your Corpse that shows up on this box set. What can I say about this box set? The transfers are incredible. As I said, At Midnight I'll Take Your Soul looks like a new film. This Night I'll Possess Your Corpse always looked a little bit better. It was always obvious to me that there was a little bit more well-preserved transfer. There was a little more money. There was a little more time. And This Night I'll Possess Your Corpse is a fun movie. I think if you struggle as a viewer with At Midnight I'll Take Your Soul, you kind of have to watch it first because it's the first one. It's the important, it's the origin, it's the beginning of everything Coffin Joe. So it's important, it's vital that you check that out first. But This Night I'll Possess Your Corpse is like, to me, it feels like a Jess Franco movie. Like the Jess Franco black and white movies, which were kind of like strange and obsessive and explicit, but they were like monster movies. They're like Universal monster movies. They're very traditional, and so they had traditional filmmaking techniques. Like the Baron von Klaus and Orloff. And it's that kind of film. It's kind of like an Orloff film. Coffin Joe, who was supposed to die at the end of, and he kind of does die at the end of Midnight Take Your Soul. No, he just had a real bad injury. It's just he's okay. He just gets some bandages and gets some aloe vera and on the correct parts, and he heals and he recovers. And so he comes back in This Night I'll Possess Your Corpse as kind of like this mad scientist. And he kind of lives in this dungeon, and it's and he's got like this assistant that's like Morpho, and they're just and they're trying to find the right woman. They're trying to the stories behind the making of This Night I'll Possess Your Corpse, where he took over, Jose took over this church and did all these crazy auditions where he'd throw snakes on people and, tarantulas, and it was just crazy. There's a lot of tarantula food. There's snake food. It's very well shot by this guy Giorgio Attili. This is like a very high end film. This is, for such a primitive filmmaker, the technique that you see in the Coffin Joe films, specifically This Night I'll Possess Your Corpse, is unusually sophisticated. It's really good. It's not a Hollywood film, but it's also a film in the '60s. So again, you kind of have to temper your expectations. But in some ways, the expectations are incredible because these are incredible movies. So, This Night I'll Possess Your Corpse looks even better than it has before. It always looked good. It looks even better. Awakening of the Beast. It seems like the color sequence at This Night I'll Possess Your Corpse at the very end of the movie, it's a little more muted. It was almost this neon thing in the original VHS, which I watched a long time ago, and then the transfers on the DVDs before. It's a little more muted. That's how feels like it's a little more accurate. I don't know, but it didn't ruin. It still pops. It's like it's as good as it's ever looked. Awakening of the Beast, which is a favorite of mine. I didn't really I didn't understand it for a while until it clicked for me that it's an anti-drug movie. There's a lot of interesting ideas in that movie. It looks beautiful. And I haven't watched the Finis Hamis films. I haven't watched the End of Man and When the Gods Fall Asleep. Um, I've watched Hellish Flesh, and that's a beautiful. If there was ever like a Jose something weird movie, this is like 70s fashions, garish colors. It's a it's like a comic book movie. It's a garish comic book movie. That is, and all the scenes where he's just wandering around like Fan of the Opera with the mask, that it's just eerie, it's spooky, it's cool. There's not a lot of plot, but it's kind of like the Something Weird films where the style of it, the garishness of it, the sound design of Jose's films, both in the Coffin Joe films and in Hellish Flesh, where there's just these like out of pitch screaming and screeches on the soundtrack. "Ah!" And it's for no reason. Nobody's yelling, but it's just like this it's like the very sound of the film itself is just growling and it really is wild. It's his the sound design of Jose's films is almost as signature as Andy Milligan, where he would like just play two records at the same time, and it's all this crazy stuff. Jose is full of yelling and screaming, you know. The extras, I have not dived into the commentary. Most of these films on this box set have the commentary tracks that were on the Brazilian DVD releases, where Jose himself went on the commentary tracks, told his truth, and I've not checked those out yet. It's such a big box set, so much stuff to check out. And just watching the movie itself and then diving into the extras. I've not listened to those commentary tracks. I hope they're good. I hope they're full of information. Uh, and of course, they have subtitles on there, so it's all English friendly, unlike the original releases where it was just Portuguese with no English subs. Um, Andrew Leavold, the Australian cult film researcher, does his own little tribute to Jose, where he talks about the involvement that Jose had in the trash film culture of Brazil. Stephen Thrower, Stephen Thrower shows up, and that's on Hellish Flesh. Stephen Thrower shows up on This Night I'll Possess Your Corpse, and he does what? It's like an hour. It felt like it just kept going on and on and on. He loves the movies. Though according to Stephen Thrower, you can only watch one or two Jose movies a week before it drives you crazy. I disagree. I could watch Jose movies all day. I mean, they're so wild, they're so crazy. But he tells the whole story of Jose and his development as a filmmaker, just like usual. He does an incredible job, just like he does usually. So that's great. That's something to watch. I wish there was more. I wish there was more of the. I don't know. I just wish there was more extras, like video extras, like kind of going to the places where these movies were shot and with local filmmakers, and just kind of get, because there's a lot of video essays talking about in broad terms um, Jose's contribution to film and different type of more higher level um, video essays, just in a general sense, talking about these, which is great, which you need but the movies, the stories behind the making of the movies and the cultural, the time in which they were made in Brazil. I would have loved to see a little more background on that. I guess the background that you get on that is on disc one, at Midnight I'll Take Your Soul, which is paired with um, the documentary that I've been talking about, the Strange World of José Mojica Marins, which came at the end of the 1990s and was and kind of told José's story up until now. I interviews José. You see him in his apartment. You see him wandering around, and you see his philosophical musings as the documentary tells the story of his life and filmmaking career. The box set is interesting. The first thing I noticed is when I opened it is that you're presented with a sleeve, which is because all it's like what 10 cases, 10 different DVD cases, Blu-ray cases, sorry, and they are they have double-sided wraps. The the box set I don't think is organized as well as, like, say, the Michael J. Murphy box set, where you have everything laid out chronologically, and the packaging on the Michael J. Murphy box set was real. It wasn't the flashiest thing in the world, but you were able to see the chronology of these films, and that the Coffin Joe box set, the José box set, is full of these garish, wild illustrations, which are really great. I mean, they really hype you up, and they they really illustrate the garish, strange, comic book like aura of these films. The vibe, it really communicates to you that what these films are about. The graphic, the graphic, intense nature of these films. So I think the art direction of this box set is totally appropriate. It's great. And it gets you excited, even if you have no idea who this filmmaker is, what these movies are. You're like, oh my God, what is this beautiful piece of art that I'm looking at? But it's not as chronologically ordered and neat, and kind of like a librarian version of of a box set. It's a little more messy. And also, one thing I've noticed is that I took mine out, and the box sets are assembled in different ways. Well, I've noticed some people open it up, and their front sleeve is different than my front sleeve, and the order of the discs is a little bit different. And I don't know why. Maybe it had something to do with the fact that this box set was delayed, because this box set was announced in like August, September of 2003, with a December. Well, I think it started off with a November 2023 release date, and then that slid over to December, and then it slid to January 2024. And uh, there's been a lot of issues with this box set. Apparently, before it was released, there was a recall. The boxes were stopped. But even before it was released, there was apparently audio issues on the discs. Now these discs were never released, and because when these discs were released, oddly enough, some of these discs, they have a V2 on them, and I mean, it's a brand new release, but a V2. They caught the error before they released it, but they released it in January, and people started noticing that there was a defect on Awakening of the Beast. Awakening of the Beast has incomplete English subtitles. It doesn't go to the end of the disc. The confusing part of this was the box set was reviewed by a lot of reviewers, and the reviewers didn't actually catch this, and a lot of people were a little bit confused or angry, like, okay, you reviewed this box set, you reviewed the movie Awakening of the Beast on the box set and supposedly watched it, but you didn't tell us that the subtitles were incomplete. And I think an answer has come that and this is a crazy answer, but that the first version of the box set, the version before they did the internal recall, actually had functioning subtitles, and that but it had functioning subtitles but messed up audio. And then when they released it, the final product had or either that, or they just didn't catch it throughout the initial phase. But I think that kind of makes sense, given the weird strange as everything comes up, the strange history of the production of this box set. um it wouldn't surprise me if they had an early version of this box set where the check discs had perfect, complete English subtitles on Awakening of the Beast, and then they go to the release version. Something happens in the release version, and the subtitles are not there. Uh, there's so many moving pieces on this release. Again, these films were not stored at some climate controlled, safe um, film lab in Los Angeles or New York or London, and oh, we just pull these things out and we do them. These films had to fight to survive. These films were thought as lost, and to go from doing post production in the UK on this box set, trying to get the film elements out from Brazil or get transfers out from Brazil. I think the transfers were done in Brazil. I kind of expected there was going to be some problems. I kind of expected there was going to be some weird things that was going to be happening. It was almost like, okay, first of all, the delay. I knew it was not going to come out in 2023, and then the weird stuff that happened, and the audio tracks that we never, subtitles and all kinds of stuff. This box set is incredible. It doesn't have all of the movies that he made. There's a lot of bits and pieces and documentaries and things that are missing. A lot of stuff that was released on VHS by something weird in the 90s. A lot of stuff that was only released in Brazil. So could there be a second edition, a second volume of Jose films? Obviously, yes, there could be. But what we have here is his most highest profile, most interesting films. We get the Coffin Joe films, we get the Finis Hominis films, we get Strange Hostile Pleasure, we get Hellish Flesh, we get Hallucinations of a Deranged Mind, we get the incredible documentary inside the strange world of, I'm sorry, it's hard to get all these titles. The strange world of José Mojica Marins, the Strange World of Coffin Joe, the movie. We get that. We get Stephen Thrower. We get Andrew Leavold. We get some we get some commentary tracks. It's quite a release. It's going to probably take me many weeks to get through. But I haven't even gotten through the Michael J. Murphy box set all the way yet. So I'm a slow. But so even though we don't have everything, we still have an embarrassment of riches here in an incredible box set. I wish things were a little bit more chronological. That's one my one criticism of these gigantic Arrow box sets is like trying to navigate through all the extras. Like Andrew Leavold's is like at the back of the box set, and Stephen Thrower's is on Midnight I'll Possess Your Soul. It's like really wish you could have. I really wish the first disc would kind of give everybody a good primer on Jose, like really break it down. But I guess, as I said, the document, it's odd that the documentary, which is not listed as a secondary feature, has a reverse wrap all its own. Like that doesn't even, it's very bizarre. There are design choices in this box set which are very kind of, when you think about it, it just doesn't exactly make sense. Even though The Strange World of José Mojica Marins, it's not like an extra. It's not like a DVD extra. It's a full-fledged documentary. Premiered at Sundance. It deserves to be its own part. It's a movie. It is a movie that should be showcased as a movie on this box set. And it is. But it's just kind of weird that, why is it that the reverse wrap thing is kind of weird. I in my heart of heart, it would have been kind of nice if the packaging was a little bit more like the Michael Murphy packaging, which was a little more orderly. But at the same time, it's kind of, as I say, it's representative of the whole Jose experience, this weird, strange excess, comic book, graphic-y type of thing. Graphic-y. Anyway, I think I will. I've lost my train of thought here, but I think that's about all I have to talk about with Coffin Joe. It's a real exciting release. Check out my other videos if you're even more interested in José Mojica Marins, Coffin Joe. Raymond Castile that also did great. Raymond Castile is an actor. Well, he was a guy who acted in Embodiment of Evil. He plays young Zay in the film. He's got a great channel. You should listen. He's got a lot of great videos on Jose, and obviously knew him personally, and he is a real cool guy, a real cool dude. I hope I pronounced José Mojica Marin's name, because I know he gets annoyed at that. But he's doing the good stuff. He's spreading the word, and these are great movies that more people deserve to watch them, and they will. They're available on this box set, but then also they're available on Arrow streaming service as well. So if you want to dip your toes in and get some interesting movies, that's a good way to watch them as well. You can watch them immediate because it's streaming.